But I am happy to be here, and I thank the Holocaust Memorial Miami Beach inviting me to speak primarily to a group of teachers. I am a teacher, and I'm proud to be a teacher, and I'm hoping that with Holocaust Awareness Week, I can shed light on a few things to get us to certainly understand the world we're living in and how to teach Holocaust education. So, welcome everybody. People are still coming in. Wow, see a lot of friendly faces there. Nice to see you. Look at that, my mother-in-law's here. Hi, Barbara, how are you? All right. All right. So awesome. All right. So let's get this going. So if you could sign in on this QR code, just hold your phone up right there and sign in. Mark, the Dutchman, how are you, my friend? Mark, I am drinking coffee in your honor. We drank a lot of Turkish coffee together this summer, and I'm Cuban coffee right now. I can't get Turkish coffee, but good to see you, my friend, from Michigan. All right. So if you guys can sign in. Hi, Aaron. Nice to see you. I'm so glad you're here, Aaron. Aaron helped me with this presentation a bit. She inspired me. And I thank you, Aaron, for some of your insight and resources. You rock. I see my work colleague, one of them, my work wife, Yoli. Hi, Yoli. Be careful while you're
Hi.
driving and Zoom, and that's very dangerous. Okay.
I'm
Thanks
not
for
I'm gonna
coming.
be off. I'm not driving yet. My car is off.
Oh, okay. Awesome. So if you guys can scan in, that would be wonderful. All right. So, wow. All right. So, teaching the Holocaust matters because I'm a teacher, so I want to hear from other teachers. If you could put in the chat, why, fill in the blank. All right. I'll give you a moment to do that. I'm looking at the chat. I'm not seeing too much activity yet, but I'm hoping to see some activity here. Just to let you know, at the end of the presentation, I will take questions and answers. So any questions, hold off. But if you could answer the chat, it teaches empathy. History matters. So if your students get a chance to study the Holocaust, this is true. Because history repeats itself and mankind does not want future genocides to occur. So true, my friends. Because this is more than just something that happened. Yeah. Okay. So we're all here because we care about history and why these experiences matter, these human experiences. Thank you. All right. So I'm Brad. I'm a teacher in Miami-Dade County Public Schools. It's my 29th year teaching. I have a pretty crazy schedule. I teach AP World History, Modern, World History Honors, AP Psychology, AP Macroeconomics, Economics with Financial Literacy Honors, and Research. I attended the United States Holocaust Memorial Belfer Conference this past summer. I encourage you guys to do that. It's really an amazing event. And I spent 10 days in Jerusalem at Yad Vashem. And it was an incredible experience doing this. So I've been teaching Holocaust education for over 25 years. And I've had a lot of training locally, some amazing training, which I'll talk about later. So thank you. If Miriam Klein-Kastanoff is here, thank you, because you are the rock of Holocaust education in our community. And I've learned so much from you. I come to this as a history teacher, a psychology teacher. History, I'm always curious about big problems and how it affects humanity on a global scale. And I teach AP Psych, and I'm fascinated with human behavior. So fields of psychology, social psychology have come out of the Holocaust and asking questions like why. And I have a personal interest too. My family weren't Holocaust victims, but my dad's parents escaped from pogroms in Eastern Europe on their journey to the United States, and that's another story. My wife, mi familia, her story, they escaped. Her grandmother made it out of Europe through Venezuela, and we met in Miami. And that's could be a whole nother workshop. So I have personal interest as well. So this was my trip this summer. Look at this handsome group. We are some pretty awesome teachers, I have to say. So 30 educators were selected from around the country. Many of them are here today joining us, and I thank you for joining us. I'm the only one from Florida. I think maybe we had people who lived on farms, people that lived in big cities, people that worked in public school, private school, middle school, English teachers, high school teachers, theology teachers. We had a gambit of Jewish, Gentile, and you fill in the blank. I am honored to say that I was able to work with this cohort and spend 10 days together. We still communicate regularly. We share best practices. We discuss our dilemmas. We are here for each other. And many are here tonight. And I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. These are my friends. You inspire me and you fill my cup. So I just wanted to give that shout out. So July 14th, 2023, here I am in Jerusalem at the Western Wall, feeling on top of the world. It was a different time and a different place. It's hard to believe 4 months can pass and how different the world is we're living in today. So one of the great things is we studied from some of the most amazing scholars in Holocaust education. We had access to the museums, to the archives, to primary sources that were survivors, documents, you name it. We got to go into the archives and see Schindler's List, the original list. And then we visited Oskar Schindler's grave. So this was pretty powerful stuff. So I want to talk as a teacher about pedagogical principles in teaching the Holocaust. There are many things, Holocaust, how it can be taught. And these principles were put out by Echoes and Reflection, which we're big fans of here. And I'm not going to focus on all of these. Today, my goal is to focus on making the Holocaust relevant and teaching the human story. The title of this presentation is Teaching the Human Story. But if it's not relevant, the story doesn't matter. So it's really key that we make it relevant. All right. So why should we care about this? What can we learn from this history? Why don't you put, I'd like to see a few comments in the chat here. Kind of quiet here. Well, I'll tell you why we should teach it, because anti-Semitism is on the rise, okay? Anti-Semitic incidents in Florida, most of my audience is Floridians, has more than doubled since 2020. It is, Florida saw a total of 269 incidents recorded. These are assaults, harassments, and vandalism, a 42% increase from 2021, an all-time high from 2020, and it went up again, almost doubled in 2022. South Florida counties have the highest cases of incidents, many in Palm Beach-Dade and Broward County. Florida harassment incidents are up 51%. We've had bomb threats. We've had anti-Semitic comments posted in synagogue, Shabbat services live streamed, extremist pickets distributing hateful propaganda, increase of 150%. In Florida, the increase was up, has continued to rise. We see graffiti, including swastikas, death to Jews, I hate Jews, and the N-word. School bus seats in Broward County defaced with the swastika, F the Jews. Kanye was right. All this went down. And this hate in the Sunshine State is extreme and it's real. What you're looking at here took place in Tampa. Protesters outside of the Tampa Convention Center, where a Turning Point USA Student Action Summit was taking place on July 23rd, 2022. So, yeah. Let me show you a short clip.
You spoke to some folks from the ADL. What do they tell you about what they're seeing right now?
I spoke to Orrin Siegel, who's the vice president for ADL's Center on Extremism, and he gave us an update on the number of anti-Semitic incidents that are being reported to the group.
We've been tracking a nearly 400% increase in anti-Semitic incidents being reported to us. That's vandalism, harassment, and assault. And that's in comparison to the same time frame the previous year. The Jewish community feels vulnerable right now.
That's something, that same sentiment is something that the CEO of the National Council of Jewish Women, Sheila Katz, reiterated to me. She said that when she posted on X, also known as Twitter, that Jews aren't feeling safe right now, that she was met with vitriol, that she actually received threats of assault and rape directed at her. She met with Second Gentleman Douglas Emhoff today, as well as Secretary of Education Cardona, and she told them that she feels as though they're witnessing the normalization of anti-Semitism. She said that everyone at the meeting, including those administration officials, felt as though what we're seeing right now is something that has never been seen before in terms of anti-Semitism in the United States.
I want to underscore something you reported earlier on the message that was projected at George Washington University. Also, this chant we have seen resurface at some protests from the river to the sea. That's essentially calling for the eradication of the state of Israel. What do the experts who are tracking this tell you about seeing that out in public in this way?
So some of them say that, of course, this is people taking advantage of the Middle East conflict to spread anti-Semitism, but they also attribute this, especially Orrin Siegel, to a lack of education.
What really troubles me, and I spend a lot of time in dark spaces, is when people don't even recognize what anti-Semitism is, when they don't even understand or recognize how one is supporting a violent terrorist organization. To me, that's why it's critical to have education, because clearly what we're seeing on college campuses is telling us it's needed.
I also spoke to a research analyst with the Southern Poverty Law Center, Alon Milwicki, and he said that he's tracking a sharp increase in anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic incidents. He says seeing swastikas is something that unfortunately is common, but the difference now is that we're seeing more and more of swatting against synagogues and against other Jewish institutions. Swatting is bomb threats being called into these institutions. And he also gave this very striking example, Amna, where he said that he's taught history for years at universities. And he also said that a lack of knowledge about the Holocaust is what he thinks contributes to anti-Semitism, that when he would ask students whether or not they had ever heard of Auschwitz, which is, of course, we know was the largest extermination concentration camps during the Holocaust, and only a handful would raise their hands. So this is something that, of course, we're going to continue tracking, but again, he attributed it to a failure in the education system and not necessarily to these.
Okay, education, that is the key. So I shared statistics with you about the rise of anti-Semitism, but since a month ago today, it's gone next level. Exponentially
you spoke
okay.
to some folks from the AD.
So why is it necessary to teach people about the Holocaust? Well, there's been some surveys done and what Americans know and don't know, particularly young people, millennials, and Gen Zs. And the states with the lowest Holocaust knowledge Look who's on the list, Florida. Okay, so my Florida teachers, we need to straighten this out. We need to work and get people to understand the significance of the Holocaust. My friend Dennis, you teach theology and Holocaust studies in Georgia. He's a Miami guy. He taught at Columbus High. Now he's in Georgia. Dennis, can you tell us what's going on in Georgia? Because you're on the list here too, I see.
Yeah, I don't believe that the state of Georgia mandates Holocaust education. I used to be involved with the Georgia Commission on the Holocaust, which is state sponsored, and they do the best they can. I think you can look at Georgia basically in kind of two pieces of the pie. There's the metro Atlanta area where we have about 6 million people. Obviously, it's a huge metropolitan area. Emory University, the CDC, the world's busiest airport. For some reason, I don't know why people are proud of that. But there's just a lot of people here. Below that, you have southern Georgia and northern Georgia, and that's outside of the metro areas. And I would say that those are areas where there's not a large Jewish population. There's very little Jewish representation. There's a pretty sizable Jewish community here in the Atlanta area. Of course, I've worked with different rabbis, and the universities in the metro area are doing a pretty good job. I'm also with Kennesaw State University. Their Museum of History and Holocaust Education does a fantastic job. I would agree with you. I think a lot of it is a lack of education. It's a lack of understanding, but I think it's also the teachers themselves really lack number one, maybe the knowledge, and number two, the resources. And I know Elizabeth's with us, and she's kind of from small town Texas, and I know that's we've talked about that quite a bit. If you're in a major metropolitan city, obviously the resources are going to come to you more naturally. And so I think really the challenge is getting those resources out to the southern parts of Georgia, to the northern parts of Georgia, where I think there's a greater need. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Dennis. Hey, by the way, if anybody has witnessed any kind of acts of anti-Semitism in the last month, put it in the chat what you've seen. I got people here from all over the country, and I know there's been incidents in South Florida. I'm curious to see what's going on around the country. All right. Here's what Floridians under 40 know and don't know. Can you believe this? Look at the stats. 50% of Generation Z and Florida millennials don't know what Auschwitz was. Today, I asked my seniors, it's an economics class, we talked a little bit about this. I heard them talking about the war between Israel and Palestine and how they were really confused about that Hamas represents all Palestinians. So I had to stop the class and have a conversation about this. And I taught these kids in 9th grade. They all knew about Auschwitz, but they were pretty surprised when they saw this data about denial and can it happen again. So I think this is pretty imperative. It raises our purpose as educators, particularly in Florida, but I know we're not isolated. All right. So this summer, as I said, I was in Yad Vashem, and here I was in my classroom. Probably to the left is my buddy Mark, but I don't know where he is in the picture. And we were learning. And well, here's Yad Vashem classroom today. Things have changed quite a bit. We see that the building has been repurposed to help evacuated children from southern Israel so they can go back to school. My job is to try to get people to understand the human story. Why should we care about this story? How can we learn from this history? So just to reiterate, this was a local college here, Nova Southeastern, which is in Broward County. You see this incidents, graffiti, kill the Jews, gas all the Jews. It's ugly. You're nothing but a statistic. Keep that in mind, okay? Because one of the main goals of teaching Holocaust education is to humanize it. People were not statistics. These were people, okay? And we need to take that back. So the mission is the human story. We know anti-Semitism didn't start or end in the Holocaust. The history teaches us where it can lead us if unchecked. So I showed you pictures of our backyard. So how do we teach the human story? Teach the human story while connecting people and events to the larger story. Educators should translate statistics into personal stories, use survivor and witness testimony whenever possible, emphasizing, however, that survivor voices are the exception. They're dying from old age. Highlight examples of how victims attempted to retain their humanity in the face of dehumanization. Stress the choiceless choices of the victims with limited or no power to escape. Introduce these victims, the pre-war life, the return to life afterwards, the choices, dilemma, and actions. Focus on small and large decisions made by individuals who had the ability and the opportunity to choose between morally right and morally wrong decisions prior to, during, and after the including bystanders, collaborators, perpetrators, and rescuers. More than statistics. Using primary sources over fictionalized retelling always. Avoid language. Be careful the words you choose. Okay, don't reenact. Use primary sources. Language matters. Language matters. Stay away from the universal experience during the Holocaust. There's so many things that we can provide students with human stories that represent various experiences. The kinder transport, the ghettos, the hiding, the death camps, the labor camps, the DP camps. The language reinforces the names and faces is essential. All right, so we have, luckily in South Florida, survivors that we can talk to, and I'll tell you how, if you want, how to get in touch with some to talk to your students. But when I was in Jerusalem, I met Rena Quint. And Rena had a very interesting story. She was, well, I'm going to let Elizabeth tell Rena's story because Elizabeth is my friend in Texas. And Elizabeth really got to build a close relationship with Rena. My relationship was I went shopping for a suitcase with Elizabeth so she could get books that Rena published so she can share back in Texas with her students. So Elizabeth, can you chime in and tell us about Rena and how she touched your students and how a language arts teacher like you or a history teacher can make this come alive for students?
Okay, well, sometimes I act before I think about the consequences, and I had Rena autograph books for my students, and then I realized that I had to get them back home, and so I had to go buy a suitcase to put all these books in. But it was really worth it. So on the first day of school, I had them all wrapped, and they unwrapped them, and these students had already known me from last year, so from the beginning, they were completely into it, read the whole book, and then we got to meet with her on Zoom, and she retold her story again. But basically, she had multiple mothers because her mother and her mother was killed, and then she was with her father for a while, and then she basically had different people taking care of her. But it's interesting because after, I guess, right after the whole incident with Hamas, October 7th, my students came to class and their first question was, how is Rena? And, last year they probably couldn't have told you where Israel was on a map. And so then we had to have a whole lesson about, Palestine and Israel and all of that. So they've asked me daily how she is. So I think it's that personal connection. They understand her story, but they also definitely, as Brad was saying, connected to her as a human being for what she experienced.
Elizabeth, you teach language arts in Texas?
Yes.
What grade?
I teach juniors and seniors.
Okay, so they got the human experience with Rena,
Mhm.
who didn't even know she had any blood relatives, right, until she was 31.
Right.
So fascinating story of Rena. Elizabeth, thank you for sharing your story. Is there anything else you want to mention about that, or are we good?
We're good.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right. So teaching the Holocaust in today's world, about the Holocaust, it can be overwhelming. How can we provide a meaningful experience for students in a limited amount of time? I don't have a separate elective. Some teachers teach an elective. So I have to make it work with what I have. What's an effective approach to making learning about the Holocaust relevant and meaningful today? So let's take a look. I'm going to show you a short clip.
The story of the Jewish victims is at the center of our study of the Holocaust. How shall we teach the story? We should not see it as the murder of 6 million anonymous Jews, but rather that 6 million times an individual Jew was murdered. Eli Busek was born in Krakow, Poland, to a Jewish family that had lived in the city for generations. He was a smart child who enjoyed mathematics. While in the ghetto, his father, Avraham, was offered the chance to hide Eli and his sister Renya. He couldn't bear the thought of parting from them. By the time he steeled himself to do so, it was too late. Eli and his sister were murdered in Auschwitz. Eli was 11 years old. Renya was only 6. We will never be able to understand the torment of making this impossible decision. We will never understand the enormity of his pain when his children were taken away. Giving victims a face and a name by listening to testimonies of survivors or reading words of those who perished evokes a sense of empathy with them. They become real people. The empathy created allows a more meaningful discussion as students can relate more easily to human beings than to...
Okay, so personalize the story, the human story. Make connections, teach empathy, compassion. What is needed in the world today? Empathy. All right. So to recap, Never Again starts with education. It focuses on choices, on values, and on lightness in the darkness. Our job is to teach critical thinking, try to encourage compassionate citizens, and build a better world. I'm very passionate about this. We can do this and we must do this because the world we live in is very complex and we need to make things right. So I want to share with you some resources and opportunities. And I'm going to give you another QR code shortly where you can get access to a lot of resources. So visit the Holocaust Memorial Miami Beach if you live in South Florida. It is an amazing place to be. Nikki Freeman, the education director, is awesome. She can help you get docents, get survivors. Okay, I highly encourage it. Echoes and Reflection has free webinars. I'm sharing that with you when you download it on the QR code. I'm giving you a lot of educational resources. The United States Holocaust Memorial Museum has amazing material, including on anti-Semitism. I encourage you to attend the 2024 Belfer Conference for educators. It's this past year, you can do it virtually, and it's a 3-day event. And I want to welcome Dr. Miriam Klein-Kasanoff, the director of Holocaust Teacher Institute here at the University of Miami and Miami-Dade County Public Schools. She's been a friend, a mentor, a colleague. I can go on and on. I've known her for over 25 years, and she's taught me so much. So Miriam operates all kinds of events. She does talks, lectures, workshops. Miriam, can you chime in and tell us what's coming up?
Hey, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Nice to hear your voice.
It's so great to see all of you. I'm really sorry I couldn't come on earlier. I seem to have, I may as well be transparent. Something's going on with my cold or a throat or something. And I had one of those wonderful afternoon naps and suddenly woke up and went, oh my God, it's 5:30 and I'm missing Brad.
All right, but you are here. So can you tell us a little bit about
Sure. And
some
I
of the
welcome
professional
the
development for teachers and for curious lifelong learners?
So I welcome the 27 participants and the Holocaust Memorial and Nikki Freeman for helping me put together Holocaust Education Week, as I also serve as the education chair of the Holocaust Memorial. The Institute really was born in Israel, just like Brad had gone to Yad Vashem recently. I went on the very, very first seminar over 33 years ago, and I was there for a whole month. And what I experienced at Yad Vashem and at the Ghetto Fighters House inspired me to come back to the States and to my home school district in Miami, where Brad is one of my most outstanding, incredible Holocaust educators who started attending my institutes. So the institute is held virtually and it's held in person. In person, it's usually the first week after school is out in June for about 3 days. We hold it at different venues in Miami. And what we do is we bring in scholars like Michael Berenbaum and people from Facing History. And we bring in about 100 teachers per year. Anyone is invited to come outside of Miami-Dade. I understand that you have guests here from outside of Miami-Dade. And what we do is what Brad's doing with you now, only we do it for 3 days. We give you all the resources that you can possibly need and answer all your questions and concerns. So another thing that we developed was during COVID, I was stuck right here in this corner that you can see in my apartment for 2 years, and I had to do something. So I developed something called the Sunday Salon, where once a month we bring to an audience of over 1,000 people from all over the world very interesting virtual topics on the Holocaust and on Jewish themes and Jewish life. We also offer through the Memorial Holocaust Education Week activities all week. And let's see, what have I left out, Brad?
What's coming up? Just tell us like what's coming soon. So if people want to sign up, how they can.
Okay, so first of all, I want to make it clear to everyone also that I myself am a child survivor who escaped the Holocaust over a period of 8 months and running and hiding. And I think the story is quite fascinating. And rather than traveling all over the world this year, it's on YouTube and all over the internet. So all you have to do is Google my full name and my entire story will come up under the heading Story Survive. So be sure and do that. So the next program that we're going to have is on the 19th, Sunday Salon at 5 p.m. And if any of you have ever heard of the author Lisa Scodellini, who usually writes murder mysteries, but she did write an incredibly interesting historical novel called Eternity about fascist Italy and the Nazis and what happened in Italy to 3 young people during the Holocaust years. So how do you get to be on the Sunday Salon? What you do is you give Brad, or he gives me, all your emails, and then I forward them on to our assistant, to Elisa Parda-Stein, who then will put you on a contact list. So if you see an email in the next 10 days that says, Institute, University of Miami, Lisa Scodolini, don't delete. It's a flyer, it's credible, and all you have to do is register. It's free thanks to the Ganda Family Foundation, and you then become a regular of the Sunday Salon. That's the next thing that's coming up. Anything else that you want me to mention, Brad? I don't want to take any more time.
No, I think that's fantastic. So I'm happy to share. So yeah, if you're interested, I know many of you on this chat. So we'll get you the contact information of how you can register. Okay. So thank you, Miriam. It's a privilege to have you here. And aren't you giving something tomorrow for Holocaust Education Week? Don't you have an event tomorrow?
I think that Nikki is answering right now. We have events every day. Yeah, I'm supposed to be speaking tomorrow morning with Judy Rodan, the other child survivor, but that's only for Miami Beach High teachers.
Oh, I see.
It might be recorded and maybe we can send it out. We'll see. Leave it up to Nikki.
All right. So thank you so much. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'm sharing, if you can scan the QR code, you're going to see access to some really good lessons, materials that I discussed today. Okay, so there's a plethora of information, easy to go. And if you need any assistance, please feel free to ask me. But I think it's pretty self-explanatory how to get to these sources. All right, so I thought we would take a little bit of time and we can do a little Q&A. If you have questions for me, or we want to discuss a best practice, and you have some advice or something that's you want to discuss, let's hear it. So, okay.
Brad,
Yes.
it's Kim.
Hi, Kim.
Hi.
Kim
Hi.
from Baltimore?
Kim from Baltimore.
Hi,
Yes.
Kim. Thanks for
So-
coming.
Yeah, this has been really great and miss all of you. Our summer was so wonderful. But one thing I've been thinking about is one of my younger colleagues, we were discussing the phrase from the river to the sea.
Hmm.
And I hear that as anti-Semitic, plain and simple. She hears it as creating a Palestinian homeland. And so I'm wondering if you can weigh in on that. Is that one of those instances when education is needed? You know,
Well, yeah, because I heard, thank you for bringing that up. I heard students in my class today, we talked about that for a little bit, and I heard Dr. Birnbaum talk about it last night. And, you know, first of all, what happened a month ago today wasn't a Holocaust, he said, and let's get that straight. But it was a pogrom. People were brutalized, raped, violated, beheaded. This is a real issue. So 240 people were taken hostage. We don't know where they are. 1,400 people murdered. So this wasn't a civilized act of liberation. This was an act of terror. So I think that statement, of course, a point of view is going to, people are shaped by different points of view from their experience. But for that statement to happen, you have to annihilate Jews to make that happen. So I don't see any way around it. But on TikTok, you know, my daughter gets all her information on TikTok, and the crap she's seeing is just like that. And they need to understand that, you know, Hamas doesn't represent Palestinians. Hamas has their own interests. So it's one thing to take a political position, but that's not a political position. That's an act of terror. So I think, I don't know, would somebody else like to chime in on that? I'm not.
So
Miriam,
Brad, if I
is there
may,
something you'd like to say? I know Sharon Horowitz is here. I know she's probably got something to say.
Brad, if I
Sharon,
may,
hi, can you speak up if you don't mind? Because
yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. This Sharon was in Jerusalem at Yad Vashem. We shared a couple classes together this summer. And Sharon, thank you for being here. And I'm not sure what your title is, because last time I told you, you told me big things were happening. So
Well, I'm currently the executive director of the Holocaust Memorial Miami Beach.
yes,
I've been there for 14 years. And Hamas is a terrorist organization. It's named as a terrorist organization by the United States government. And in their charter, they indicate that they want to murder all the Jews. In their charter, that is their goal. And that phrase that that you just mentioned means we want to eliminate all of the Jews from the sea to the ocean, which means all of Israel. Israel is only 13 miles wide. So it's a very small country. It's the size of New Jersey. And that's what that phrase means. So that is inherently not even anti-Semitic, but it was really calling for murder.
yeah,
Could I add something to that?
yeah. Please do, Miriam.
So I disagree with Michael Berenbaum in a little bit. God forbid disagreeing with Michael Berenbaum. All my cousins and relatives in Israel, the Jewish cousins and relatives, are saying to them, it's an Israeli Holocaust because it's an intended murder of all the Jews of Israel. That's a terrorist intent. Now, I don't think that the teacher who spoke earlier, I'm not saying she should say, yes, this is a Holocaust, because the actual Holocaust with a capital H is indeed unique. It's the Nazi Holocaust of 1933 to 1945. But if her students are mature enough, I certainly would add that she could add that, quoting me if she wants, that Jewish residents of Israel that I have been in contact with have constantly emailed me and said, oh my God, this is an Israeli Holocaust. So I just thought I'd add that, that factually, of course, Dr. Birnbaum is correct. It's not the Holocaust, or it's, as I said before, the Nazi Holocaust of 33 to 45 is unique. I also thank Sharon for clarifying what that phrase means, because I did not know that. And I've been wondering what it means. And the other thing is, I think that I didn't know what it means. And I often wonder, and I'm not defending those political people who are using it, but I don't even know if they know what it means sometimes. I don't know. What do you think, Sharon? You're muted.
You're muted, Sharon.
What do I think about the
Two
Holocaust?
things. First of all, about the fact that in my Israeli family life and cousins and relatives, each one has said, oh my gosh, this is an Israeli Holocaust.
Oh, so, you know, I would urge people to, I think Nikki has uploaded it onto the memorial's YouTube page, Michael's tremendous presentation from last night, where he does very specifically indicate that this is not a Holocaust. Number one, the greatest country in the world, the most powerful country in the world, is standing beside Israel. He said the Jews of the Holocaust did not have one friend in the world. He also said that this is a different country than what was happening in Europe. And he goes through a very detailed explanation. So, you know, I don't want to take up people's valuable time. I think that, Nikki, is it already on YouTube that people can look at Michael's presentation from last night?
It is, and I will also share it in the chat right now.
Okay, that's great. So I would urge people to listen to it. It's actually, I thought it was very illuminating also.
So what I will say is
I
that
just mentioned something, since I'm an Israeli and I speak a lot to my family in Israel. I think part of the reason that they mentioned that they call it the Holocaust because one of the atrocious things that happened at that particular time was that the people were staying in their safe spaces, which called the mamad, and they actually throw bombs and they were burning them alive. And there were also some stories of atrocities that maybe I shouldn't repeat here, but there was some burning of bodies that happened even worse than that. And that, I think, why they equate it more to the Holocaust. But I agree that it was not an Holocaust. Most of the people in Israel in the media call it pogroms.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for sharing your insight. So as a teacher, I think it's really important that we get students to understand that Hamas does not speak for all Palestinians by any means. We're not even sure who they're representing. So I have a friend who's on this chat. He's Palestinian, he's Lebanese, and he's Christian from Nazareth. And he was supposed to go to Israel for winter recess, for holidays, and he had to cancel his trip. I can tell you he's not a fan of Hamas, okay? So Hamas does not speak for all Palestinians by any means. All right. Any other questions that surfaced that you want to share, discuss? We have a few more minutes. Hi, Jennifer from New York. Look at that. How about that?
Hi there. I actually have a question.
Okay.
It came up today talking to colleagues that the call for peace and a ceasefire is anti-Semitic because what it actually means is the destruction of Israel. So I was wondering what people thought about that.
Well, I mean, you know, we're a little outside the scope of the presentation here, but, you know, I'm a person who would like to see peace, but I don't know how we reach that peace. In a ceasefire, I'm not sure how to even address that, okay? Is there somebody who thinks they can address that?
What's the question again?
Jennifer, your question was calling for a ceasefire. Is that anti-Semitic in nature by itself?
Calling for what? I'm sorry.
A ceasefire.
Calling for a ceasefire. Is that, can that be considered anti-Semitic? Because what happened with the ceasefire is that would restore Hamas's power and ultimately possibly lead to another attack.
I don't see it that way. By the way, Jennifer,
Okay.
my niece's name is Jennifer Klein.
Oh.
I personally don't see that anti-Semitic. I see that as a effort to pause and reevaluate for a moment. That would be my gut first reaction.
Okay. Thank you. I wasn't sure how to respond to some colleagues talking about that. Thank you.
Well, what do you think, Brad?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's anti-Semitic. I think these are, obviously there's political decisions being made and military strategies that it's outside of my expertise. I don't know how to address that. So I would like, you know, I hate to see people suffer. So, you know, I want people to, seeing images of people being, of dying babies is terrible, the way it's being portrayed in the media. So Israel, unfortunately, right now is being blasted, you know, and they have a public relations problem. And so how do they address that? Because I think this is going to be a slow, long, drawn out effect. And the media is, we've seen, using images that are distorted. You know, the hospital that was bombed, it wasn't Israel, but they said it was Israel. So, and these messages are sticking. So I think it's really important to deal with this disinformation and get students to understand that and to see what's credible, you know? All right, but I don't think it's anti-Semitic. No, I would disagree with that.
Thank you.
We got time for maybe one more question.
I would like to hear from a couple of the teachers, how they actually, unless I missed it, I'm sorry if I did, how they're actually addressing the issue in the classroom when teachers ask. So I would love to hear that. Has anyone shared that yet, Brad?
We had minimal participation on that. So let's put it out there. I see a hand raised by an iPhone. I don't know who you are, but go ahead.
Hi, it's Miss Mueller. I am your colleague.
Oh,
And
Miss Mueller.
I think initially it was very difficult to teach and make this a teachable moment. I was just, I think, in shock and in awe myself. And I spoke to a friend in Tel Aviv. I think it was the first week, and I was on my way to school, and I decided to use my emotions as a teachable moment. I walked into the classroom with my heart on my sleeve. I showed them a poem, which is an American poem about how it is not sweet and becoming to die for one's country, and how war and all of these instances really do deplete our human condition. And I sat there and I cried with some of my students too, who were very vocal, because I think we need to bring the reality of the outside world into the classroom. And the only way I knew I could do it that day was just being myself and explaining to the students that I was going through this because of what was going on, but at the same time, never ignore the issue. I wanted to keep going, and we come back to it's, especially in times when the students bring it up. But I definitely think it's important, and that was the only way I could handle it week one.
Thank you, Yoli. I appreciate you sharing your words there.
I would like to say one more thing, since I am that involved with the Israeli media and listening. I am not teaching anymore, but I would love to make sure that the teachers do understand and bring up the fact that most of the people that were living in those villages right by the border were very, what we call leftists. They were very peaceful people, and there were witnesses, at least from one or two that I heard on the Israeli media, that they were volunteers to come to the Gaza crossing, and that was their job. They were called them from the Gaza crossing to let them know there is a Palestinian who needs a serious medical attention, or there are children that needed medical attention, and her job was to actually drive over there, take that Palestinian person and bring them back and bring them to the Israeli hospitals, and then get treatment and bring them that. And I've heard that from more than one person. These were very peaceful, and they were very, and they really believed that the Palestinians that live across from behind the wall were there, they were friendly with them. They helped them. Many of them came and worked in those villages. But the idea that they actually did help bring children to the hospital, that some of them, that was their volunteer job to do, is very important to know that these were very peaceful people that were traumatized and shocked that they were treated like that by people they considered friendly.
Thank you for sharing. Liz from North Carolina. Hi, nice to see you. Can you share some of your insight?
Yes, I apologize in advance for my voice. I'm homesick today. So, but one of the things that I've done is kind of go back to your whole title here of teaching the human story. And I've really been trying to emphasize to the students that Hamas does not represent all Palestinians, and we need to remember that. And I have been in contact with a number of Israeli teachers, and they are Zooming into my class with their students. And we're talking about what life is like for them right now in Israel. How are they still going to school? Why are young people just a few years older than the ones I have looking forward to being in the military and looking forward to defending their country? And why do they have that pride in that? And I think having my students hear from individuals and from other teens really helps kind of put this into a little bit of context for them, because we are so removed from this conflict over here in the US. And I mean, we're talking about students who don't even know anything about basic things about the Holocaust. How are they going to understand this? You know, so my approach was it's too big of a topic to try to cover. I would need like an entire week, but let's break it down into small little sections and talk about the people who are involved. So that's kind of what I've been doing.
Thank you, Liz. Is there any other teachers out there that want to share what they're doing?
No, but I do have a question.
Okay.
Do
Go
we
ahead.
know yet if there were any Palestinian upstanders on October 7th? Did any of those neighbors come and help at all or try?
A great question. I don't think the answer is what we want to hear. I haven't heard any evidence of that.
I haven't either.
Yeah. Great question. Great question. Well, these are difficult times, and as teachers, we have a lot of responsibility. And what's happening, Liz said it's so far removed, but I do think it's going to impact us here in the United States. It's on college campuses. My son's going to college next year, and I worry that it's going to get crazy. All this anti-Semitism that's going to be rising on campus that we're seeing now, and we have a job to let people know and to inform kids and to get the right information and to tell the human story. So I think we are about out of time, because I've always learned you got to end the workshop right before the due time. So I want to thank you very much for attending my session today. I'm Brad Sultz. I teach at iPrep Academy. That's my email. So feel free to reach out. I'm happy to talk, give you feedback, resources, anything and everything. So without further ado, you be safe out there and have a great night, and hope to see you again soon. Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
All right.
Good night. Thanks, Brad.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be
Thanks,
safe.
bye.
Be safe.
Thanks,
you.
Brad. Thanks, Brad. I'm glad I caught you. You did a great job.
Thank you, Miriam.